Why? Well, because Caitlin Clark hits back-to-back threes. Stephanie White hates seeing that. So what does she do? In typical Metheny fashion, she sits Caitlin Clark on the bench. You're going to sit right here next to me. Offense can't do anything. Offense can't move. Offense can't shoot. Offense can't create. Offense can't put a basket. Can't put a ball in the basket.
That's not coaching. That's sabotage. Caitlin Clark hits back-to-back threes, stretches the lead to 15, and Stephanie White's response is to put her on the bench. The Indiana Fever just dropped a 104-102 overtime heartbreaker they had no business losing, and that single decision in the second quarter is the reason why.
Today, well, there's a lot of people that can take blame for today's loss, but there's one person that ducks all accountability in my book, and that is CC22. Caitlin Clark. I can't blame you. I can't put the onus on you. The onus to me, majority.
So who's catching blame for this one? Notice he immediately takes Caitlin Clark off the table. Number 22 is not the suspect tonight, because when you finish 10 for 28 from the field and still drag your team to overtime in a road game that should have been put away at halftime, you're not the problem. You're the rescue mission.
Money Mitch. Bring that ass over here, Money Mitch. I'm not sure if I can continue to defend this. I'm not sure if I can continue to defend you dribbling the air out of the basketball. I'm not sure if I can continue to defend you seeing Caitlin Clark have a hot hand and you want to say, yeah, watch this. I'm not sure I can continue defending you refusing to do a swing pass. I'm not sure I can continue defending you just being one-dimensional.
Kelsey Mitchell finished 10 for 25 from the field tonight. That's 40% shooting against the Washington Mystics with the season on the line. And the issue isn't the volume of shots, it's the timing of them. Watch the fourth quarter possessions tonight. Clark is 6 feet away with a hot hand, 2 defenders collapsing, and Mitchell pulls up off the dribble anyway. This isn't a one-game problem. This is the season-long pattern that just cost Indiana a winnable game on the road.
As the Sparks are coming back, you decide to go hero ball, and fortunately the Sparks couldn't mount the comeback. Lucky for us. But tonight, Caitlin Clark's clearly the hot hand. Caitlin Clark's the one that should take the majority of the shots. Caitlin Clark's the one that should have had the ball in her hands late in the fourth quarter and overtime. Yet you decided to be the hero. I can be your hero, baby. You couldn't be our hero today.
The Sparks reference is important. 2 games ago, Los Angeles climbed back from a double-digit deficit because the same ball stopping closed out the offense down the stretch. Indiana won that night, but only because the Sparks ran out of clock. Tonight, the Mystics did not run out of anything. Sonia Citron put up 30 points. Kiki Iriafin added 25 more. Aaliyah Boston walked off with what looked like a lower body injury in the third quarter and never returned. The front court was vulnerable. The defense was scrambling. And Indiana's best shot creator was being asked to run a decoy role in her own offense.
Even Metheny White wasn't foolish enough when it was time to put the game into overtime. Even Metheny said, hey, Austin, draw something up for Kelly. Draw something up for Caitlin. Even Metheny said, Caitlin, you're hot. We're going to actually need you here. Even Crackhead White said that. You couldn't say that? Now, it was mentioned in the chat, salute to everybody in the venue. Kelsey, are you point shaving, dude? Are you point shaving? Because some of this...
There it is. The single moment that exposes the entire problem. The same coach getting publicly dismantled for benching Caitlin Clark in the second quarter. The same coach getting mocked by her own fan base for failing to run a coherent offense, made one correct decision tonight. When overtime started, Stephanie White walked over to her assistant and said the obvious. Draw something up for Caitlin. Even she could see it. The shooter is locked in. The defender is recovering on every closeout. The crowd is electric. So if Stephanie White, the coach being torched on this podcast, can recognize a heater when she sees one, what exactly is Kelsey Mitchell's excuse for outshooting Clark in the second half?
Forcing overtime here. I mean, look at this pass. First things first, look at this pass by Sophie Cunningham. Across the whole entire court, right to Myisha Hines-Allen. A little rub screen by Lexi Hull. Dribble handoff from Myisha Hines-Allen, taking on Caitlin Clark's man. Kiki Iriafin and Georgia Moore left to contest. Bang, Caitlin Clark. Knock down. We're headed to overtime. Sonia Citron almost won the game in the last shot, but fortunately Fortunately for us,
Break down what just happened on that overtime forcing three. Sophie Cunningham makes the outlet pass coast to coast, which is itself a play most rotation guards in this league cannot execute under pressure. Damiris Dantas is in the action because Aaliyah Boston is on the bench with her injury. Lexi Hall sets a rub screen that buys Clark half a step of separation. Dantas takes the dribble handoff and immediately flips it back to Clark, drawing Kiki Iriafen on the switch. Now Clark is rising up with Iriafen, the Mystics Rookie of the Year candidate, and Georgia Amore flying at her from the weak side. She buries it. That is a 5-player sequence executed in 3 seconds, on the road, down 3, with playoff seeding implications on the line. And it works because, for once, the offense was designed around the player who can actually make it work.
4 for 11, and they're all bunnies. That's bad news bears. Caitlin Clark, 10 for 28. Kelsey Mitchell, 10 for 25. They scored 56 points between the two of them, and it wasn't enough. And it's because Stephanie White can't coach. It's because Kelsey Mitchell continues to dribble the air out of the ball. And you look at this bench. I mean, this bench is just disastrous. This bench is disastrous. But today was a game of the stars versus the stars. Sonia Ciccone put in 30, Kiki put in 25, Shakira Austin 19, Cody McMahon, a rookie Cody McMahon.
Look at the rest of this roster. Aaliyah Boston put up 9 points and 4 rebounds in 20 minutes before the injury, and was largely invisible while she was healthy. Sophie Cunningham finished with 7 points, 1 rebound, and 2 assists. Monique Billings rebounded well at 9 boards, but she went 4 of 11 from the field, every single attempt at the rim. These are not excuses, these are explanations. When Clark and Mitchell combine for 56 points on 20 of 53 shooting, and the team still loses by 2 in overtime, the missing 20 points are sitting on the bench and in the box scores empty columns. Raven Johnson, the rookie out of South Carolina, played exactly 4 minutes. Kaylin Timpson got 4 minutes. Lexi Hall, who fell to the floor 12 times by Ben Dendo's count, played meaningful rotation minutes. That is not depth. That is a coach who has decided which 7 players she trusts. And she will run that group into the ground regardless of matchup, regardless of fatigue, and regardless of whether they are actually winning basketball games.
Pete. Stephanie White, you need to go. You need to get fired. You need to realize that this is Caitlin Clark's team. And Kelsey Mitchell, you need to understand this isn't your team. But the problem is, Stephanie White has told her it's her team. Amber Cox has told Stephanie White and Kelly Krauskopf that it is her team. The Three Stooges are all in lockstep that it is Kelsey Mitchell's team. That fourth quarter was Caitlin Clark going crazy. In spite of Stephanie White. Not because of Stephanie White, in spite because of Stephanie White. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video.
Here is where this gets bigger than one game. The Indiana Fever just lost a road overtime game to a Washington Mystics team that finished the regular season near the bottom of the standings last year. And the dysfunction is not coming from the locker room. The dysfunction is coming from the front office. Start with Amber Cox. Cox was elevated to Chief Operating Officer of the Fever last offseason with a mandate to modernize the franchise. She supported the hire that brought Stephanie White back to Indianapolis, a return engagement after White's first head coaching stint with the team nearly a decade ago. The pitch was straightforward. White is a hometown name with veteran credibility. She will manage Clark's development. She will professionalize the program. None of that has happened. Kelly Krauskopf is the team president. Krauskopf is one of the most respected executives in this league. She is the architect of the championship-era Fever rosters, the executive who built around Tamika Catchings, the woman who briefly broke the NBA's front office glass ceiling with the Pacers. So when Bendendo says the three-headed front office of Cox, Krauskopf, and White is in lockstep about whose team this is, that is not a casual accusation. That is a generational franchise builder, an established team president, and a freshly promoted COO, all reportedly agreeing that the league's biggest revenue engine should be playing decoy for a veteran combo guard who cannot crack the all-star team. This is the part that should make every Fever fan furious. Caitlin Clark drove roughly 30% of WNBA viewership during her rookie season. The Fever sold out every home game. National television networks rearranged their broadcast schedules around her starts. The league's new media rights deal, valued at $2.2 billion over 11 years, was negotiated in the shadow of her arrival in this league. She is quite literally the reason this franchise has resources to argue about in the first place. And the response from the people running the building is to deny her the basketball in winning time. Think about the position Caitlin Clark is in right now. She is 23 years old. She just played her second professional season. Her coach has publicly demanded that referees stop letting opponents target her physically. an admission that Clark has been taking the worst beating of any star in the league. Her offense is being run by a player who refuses to give up the ball. Her bench is full of veterans who cannot shoot, and rookies who cannot get on the floor. And when she single-handedly drags a broken team to overtime on the road, the post-game conversation is not about her heroics. The post-game conversation is about why the coach benched her after she made consecutive threes. The benching question deserves its own segment, but the short version is this. There is no professional basketball reason to remove a shooter from a game in the middle of a heater. None. Not foul trouble, because Clark was not in foul trouble. Not rest, because you can rest her at the start of the next quarter. Not strategy, because there is no strategy in the world that improves when your best player sits down. The only explanation that fits the pattern is the one Fever fans are increasingly arriving at on their own. This coaching staff appears determined to prove the team can win without Clark dominating the ball, and they are willing to lose games to make the point. Now compare this to how other franchises handle their stars. The New York Liberty built an entire offensive system around Sabrina Ionescu's strengths. The Las Vegas Aces designed their championship offense around Aja Wilson's mid-range game. The Minnesota Lynx adapted to Nafisa Collier's all-around skill set. Every other contending franchise in this league has identified its best player and built the team around her. Indiana has identified its best player and built the team to work in spite of her. Watch the Money Mitch sequences again with that context in mind. Kelsey Mitchell is not a villain. She is a tough, hard-working veteran who carried Indiana's offensive load for years before Clark arrived. The problem is not her effort or her character. The problem is that her coach has told her, in word and in deed, that her shot attempts are valued equally to a generational scorer's shot attempts. So she takes them. Why would she not? Her playing time is guaranteed regardless of efficiency, and the front office has signaled that her usage rate is sacred. The fish rots from the head. The injury report makes this even worse. Aaliyah Boston walking off in the third quarter is a problem for a team that is already thin in the front court. Damiris Dantas is a serviceable rotation big, but she is not a primary scorer or a rim protector. Without Boston, the Fever's defensive rating drops. Their rebounding margin flips negative, and Clark is asked to do even more lifting. If Boston misses time with what looked like a lower body issue, the margin for coaching errors essentially disappears. The Mystics deserve real credit here too. Sonia Citron is becoming the player Washington thought they were drafting. 30 points on the road against a team fighting for playoff position is a star-level performance, and her steadiness in overtime after the Mystics collapsed in the fourth quarter showed a maturity beyond her experience. Kiki Iriafen's 25 points and the contributions from rookie Georgia Amour tell you Washington has finally assembled a young core worth watching. They earned this win, but they should not have been allowed to earn it the way they did. So where does this go from here? Stephanie White is signed beyond this season according to public reporting. Firing her mid-season would require ownership to admit a multi-million-dollar mistake. Krauskopf's loyalty to the coaching staff she helped hire makes a front office intervention unlikely. Cox has bigger fires to fight with arena planning and expansion negotiations. The most realistic outcome is that Indiana limps to a first-round playoff exit. The franchise spends the offseason pretending the system is fine, and Caitlin Clark gives an unusually quiet exit interview about wanting to spend more time at home in Iowa. That last part is the nuclear option, and nobody in Indianapolis wants to consider it. But Clark has leverage that no first-time star has ever had in WNBA history. The next CBA negotiation is coming. Her marketability is global. The new ownership groups in expansion cities like Portland and Toronto are watching every move. A player who can credibly threaten to reshape the league's economics is a player whose preferences eventually get heard. So here is the question every Fever fan needs to wrestle with after watching tonight's loss. If you were Caitlin Clark, after the benching, after the Money Mitch isolation possessions, after the bench rotations that ignore your young legs, would you sign your second contract with this franchise? Would you trust this coaching staff to maximize what could be the prime of a Hall of Fame career? Because the answer to that question is going to define the next decade of women's basketball. Tell me in the comments. Tell me who you blame more between Stephanie White and Kelsey Mitchell. Tell me whether Amber Cox and Kelly Krauskopf get a pass or share the responsibility. And tell me whether you think Caitlin Clark spends her whole career proving she can win in spite of the system, or whether she eventually demands the system change. Like the video, hit subscribe so we can keep covering this season as it unravels, and we will see you next time.